Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Guile here, and welcome back to the Forged Alliance Forever promotional series, Cast 400 in the series. 400 casts. That's an awful lot of time wasting that you guys have done on my behalf. Well done. Everybody give yourselves a pat on the back. Lots of people saying, I've got to do something sensible, something exciting, something special for Cast 400. I was like, oh, okay, I don't know what, but... And then a bunch of other people saying, we've got an election coming up. You haven't done an election prediction in, like, forever. And it's like, well, in my defense, there hasn't been an election in quite a while. And I could have covered elections in the Philippines or something, and I don't think it would have quite had the same impact. That sounds very Anglo-centric. I'm well aware of that, so apologies if you're watching in the Philippines. Say, what about me? But yeah, so we're going to do it. That's what we're going to do. And we've got a custom 1v1. It is going to be a longer one for one of the FAF casts anyway, guys. So bear that in mind if you haven't got time to watch it now. And it's going to be a custom 1v1, and that action is going to take place on Rigor 6 Highlands. So let's go on over to the game zone first and see how they're going to get on. Cha-ching. I'm doing it a weird way this way around, but you'll see what I mean. Ching, ka-ching. And then we're actually going to take a look at what we're doing here, so you can see that we've got a UEF and a Cybran matchup. So the way I'm going to operate it today is it's quite complicated. If you're not a UK-based person, you don't know how certainly parliamentary systems work in general, but maybe not our parliament. It's not, I mean, it's called a two-party system, but it's not a two-party system, really. There's all sorts of outcomes. We could end up with a hung parliament, which is incidentally what we have right now, because Theresa May lost her majority in 2017 because she's crap. So it's like, well, did they really win it or did not? So what we're going to say is we might not actually know whether this is correct, this prediction now, on the day after the election, which will be the 13th of December. It might be that we have to wait a few weeks, because what I'm going to say is the outcome, the winner of this is going to be the person who ends up in Downing Street. Is it going to be Boris Johnson of the Conservatives? Is it going to be Jeremy Corbyn of Labour? So the way that's going to work is, it's unlikely that Labour are going to win a majority. It's sort of 50-50 whether or not the Tories could at the moment win one by themselves. But Labour could, if they deprive Johnson of a majority, they could end up still gaining power with a coalition with the other parties. So that's how we're going to do it. Now, the natural bedfellows for this would be UEF, of course, Noble, typically True Blue, although they're running red here, which is a little confusing. Typically, they, to me, have always screamed more conservatives, and you all like to say, yes, because they oppress people and enslave people, they're horrible, they're racist. No, they just have nicer uniforms, they're typically blue like the Tories, so that's what we're going with there. And the spiky space socialists who are complaining all the time, they're classic socialists, they love to whinge and whines, about petty freedoms and being allowed to survive and stuff like that. So that would be the normal thing. So what I've got here, if I switch over to my other screen, what I've got on my browser, I've got a yes or no. So yes will be true, so we operate it as normal, i.e. UEF Tories and Cybran Labour. No will reverse it, so it will go the other way around, and we'll just see what this comes out at. Click to spin, and actually give it a proper spin. There you go. And our survey says yes. So it's going to be UEF for the Tories, those dirty, evil Conservatives that... Oh, God, that's horrible. I should have got that first. Those dirty, evil Conservatives that you guys all, I'm sure, can't stand, and it gives me fuel to get up in the morning. And Cybran will be representing the pseudo-space communists, i.e. Jeremy Corbyn and his band of British-hating people. All right, on with today's game. I'm ready. You guys are ready. The players are ready. So let's boot things up and see how they're going to get on. I'm going to get so much abuse for this at the end of it, and I'm sort of really excited about it. That probably makes me a terrible person, but there we go. Turbo 2 is running it for Bojo and crew. I'm totally partisan, by the way. I'm going to try to be objective but you guys, if you follow it, will know that I'm not, and I'll probably come through in some way, shape or form during the cast. But here he is, fighting for those evil Tories. It is Turbo 2, and he's going UEF, as we've said, opening first land, and his opponent down here at the bottom, it's Keezer going for Jeremy Corbyn, fighting for all of the crazy lies that they're saying about the NHS, yada yada yada, and to stop Brexit. And he's opening first land. So, but I didn't actually see, did the Tories open first land? Yes, they did. So no major surprises there. And this is essentially as well a almost like a ladder. So we should keep a close eye on their grassy green openings, so you can judge for yourself who is more efficient. So Keezer going second air, as is Turbo. Both got the core mass and both going straight for hydro, so no differentials there. It screams to me much more like a conservative New Labour of old, where they're both pretty much exactly the same. Although the choice couldn't be different this time round. I don't know if you guys know anything about UK politics, but we've got kind of more of the same from the Tories, and major transfer of power to the state being proposed under Labour. Complete overhaul of our entire economic system. That's essentially where we're going. So Tories went 2 P-Gens and Labour going 4, which will mean that Air Factory should come online first. And will we see any early bomber coming out? I doubt, to be honest, that's going to have any major impact even on the early game. Third P-Gen going down there for Bojo and crew. We've got 11-9 in favour of Turbo 2 for the time being. And reclaim-wise, he's also picked up, probably looks to be about an extra 500 mass. It's 1.9 to 1.8k, maybe a little less than 500. Keezer's ticking over pretty soon after him. Third factory for both of these guys. It looks like it's going to be land. And it's actually Keezer who's going to finish that one first of all. Air Scout out for Turbo. Going to get an early read on where we're going. And is that a lab? No. So we've got Mantis coming out from Keezer and heading directly north. We've also got a couple of strikers out there for Turbo, and a Snoop for a little bit of intel, heading on towards the middle of the map. So air-wise, Keezer went Scout and Interceptor just the same as Turbo, although both of the two Interceptors hanging back, waiting for that initial first run from the Air Scout. This version of Rigor 6 Highlands, incidentally, guys, we've got civilian structures up here, rail guns, T1 PDs. We do have a P-Gen and a radar in there as well. Some reclaim to be had, but we have got 3 mexes up on that ridge, and there's not actually a huge amount of mass on this 10 by 10. Lots of reclaim dotted around, but mass points are fairly sparsely populated. Nice little attempt at manoeuvring there by the Tories, but not particularly successful. However, they have won the air battle down in the bottom right. 3 inties there to the 1, the new one that's just been spat out of Keezer's air factory. He's still got his Air Scout alive and well over on the left. Has he done a run? He hasn't actually done a run of the main base yet. He's got that 1 core mex that he's visualized, and that is it. Otherwise, it's all pretty quiet. Next Prowler due to be spat out of the air factory there on 90%. Turbos, inties tightly homogenized, flying in formation. Both, all 3 of them partially damaged. It's probably a good time for them to bug out. Looks like they're heading north. Next encounter won't go so well for them, and he's well aware of it. Mantis and Strikers, meanwhile, just south of Turbo's base, merge. Keezer drifting northeast up towards the mexes over here, which is actually where Turbo's situated with his comm. Both players pulled their comm out in the same motion towards the mexes up here. Why is that? We've got another pseudo starting location if you had a 2v2 running up in the middle, and 3 mexes here, so you want to guard that and extend out that way. That's the most efficient route. 3 of those Mantis, though, managed to make it into the backfield of that little side base right there. Looks like they snagged an engineer that was going merrily about his reclaiming business in the forest there. Hearts are with his family and friends. And that little trio of Mantis still alive and well, trying to cause havoc elsewhere. They are unaware they're about to run into the ACU, though. Turbo reclaims, finishes that, and swats those 3 Mantis without any major difficulties there. Growing numbers of spam for both players, mobilizing in the center. Labour looking like they've got slightly more presence on the ground, which is ironic because they're momentum activists. That's kind of how it is on the ground. See if that holds up over the course of the game. A couple of Lobos lobbing shells at where they think engineers might be down here, reclaiming structures, and actually managed to kill off some of the mass there. So that's a nice little bit of denial from the Conservatives, which is not a great sentence if you're campaigning for them. Interesting polling out today suggesting that Tories are going to win a majority. It was actually, I think it was last night it came out, and it was a handsome majority as well. People suddenly paying attention to it because it was one of the few polls that called the 2017 election correctly. I'm not so sure this time round. I've got to say, I was actually saying earlier on when people were talking about it, are you going to do it? I said, looks like the Tories got a pretty solid lead. I don't know if it's much of a contest. But people buying into this thing that Corbyn's selling right now, just sort of each poll that comes out, they've been chomping away at that lead bit by bit. And they don't have to get level with the Tories to deny him a majority. Labour have an electoral advantage under the first past the post system, so Tories actually have to get more than Labour would to affect a majority because of the way the vote share is distributed. So, I don't know, man. My own personal prediction on the run-up to this, without taking into account of this game, is either a very, very slim Tory majority or another dreaded hung parliament, which would just be a disaster for our democracy trying to get things done once again. He's battling out on his own with his comm, blapping away at these T1 tanks that are sharply and hastily making a retreat around the edges of those hillocks there. The main battle happening right in the center. Stronger formations for the time being from Keyser till Turbo lines up. And that's actually a little bit of a missed opportunity there, although I'm wondering how much vision he's actually got. He does have radar coverage from these scouts in the mix. I think if he'd have presented a straight line to that horde of troops of Turbos coming in when it was bunched up on the cliff edge, coming in single file, I think he would have traded up there. But it's so hard to tell what's what just from the radar signatures. And it's all easy for me to say, as we always say on this channel. So very easy to be critical when it's not you doing it. Transport away there. Where's that thing going? So typical. Saw it when the camera malfunctioned. Ah, there it is. Just zipping around in the background, not doing anything particularly special. So he's offloaded over here Lobo and a couple of engineers. Get the Lobo to take down the point defense structures, and then the civilian structures are up for grabs. And they've done that almost at exactly the same time. Keyser committing more manpower, though, to his strike. 3 Medusas making landfall on that plateau. So he will gain control of that civilian facility much, much quicker than Turbo will. Quite intrigued to see what I spark off in the comments below. I'm actually not expecting a huge divergence of opinion. I expect the majority of my viewers that have an opinion will be pro-Labour, just based on age demographics. Rise of socialism in our youth, well documented at this point. It's more of a global thing rather than something that's unique to Britain. I'm intrigued to hear what people across the pond, America and other places, think about that, whether that's your experience. Lots of trades over in the middle, but not a huge amount of movement. Both armies packed with artillery pieces. You can see the smoke trails in the sky there as they exchange. I'd say there was a much larger concentration of Medusas, though, than Lobos. More artillery coming out from the socialists. And now we've got a mongoose in the center there, just laying into that pile of troops from the Tories. It's like an Andrew Neil interview, paying off for them. And another one. So transition to T2 there from Turbo. You'd expect Tech to be running along at similar rates. We have got T2, and interestingly, I didn't mention it, but Keyser said right at the start, time for beetle test, and he's talking about fire beetles. So is he trying some kind of fire beetle strat? He's certainly producing them. A couple of them sat just at the northeast corner of his factory there. Fun to see if he's going to go and attempt to snipe or something like that. T2 upgrade on the way for Turbo's comm. That's at 75% and climbing. Over here, Keyser's comm helping to lock down the western approach there, facing off against a couple of Lobos, or a small platoon of Lobos. He's going to pull his comm forward and fire off a couple of shots. Comms, of course, can't keep up with the speed of the T1 spam. Always a nice little bit of balancing there. Well thought out. Slowly reducing the amount of units here for Turbo, but the units that remain are becoming more heavily populated with concentrations of T2. Hoplites coming in now from Keyser. The long range of those mongoose causing all kinds of headaches. And this has been a very sedentary game. So we're coming up towards 15 minutes in now. And this front line that was drawn pretty early on. Yes, we've had the occasional breach, like we're seeing right now over in the east. This little group of 4 Lobos rolling in. Whew. That is a lucky engineer there, avoiding... Oh, maybe I spoke too soon. Yes, I did. He will be missed. Poor old Dave. He's going to open a cafe after the war. But this looks like bad news for Turbos. The center is getting overrun. Doesn't seem to bother him if the comments are anything to judge by. And there are the fire beetles. Look at that. Wonder if they were instrumental in that pushback. Maybe they were. Kamikaze units. These are Labour activists and candidates taking themselves out of the running over claims of anti-Semitism. Sacrificing themselves for the party. It's fine, they'll be let in back on the quiet later on. Getting work done though, look at that. Fire beetles are massacring that T2 line. So, just to put that into context, what we're spending here. So a fire beetle... Oh, that's upgraded to T3, just was about to look at it. Fire beetle, 250 mass and 1500 energy to make. Compare that to what we're seeing over here with, say, your average pillar. That's 200 mass, so, and not as much power, less than 1,000 power. The Mongoose also 200 and less than 1,000, so they do cost more. But when a fire beetle's taking out 2 or 3 mongoose at a time, that's definitely cost effective. However, it hasn't moved the dial massively in terms of territory. As you can see, Turbo's moved right back in. Engineers with him now throwing up a forward factory for a reinforcement point. Will he be able to keep it? I don't know. Kiza on the warpath once again. In now with more hoplites and rhinos. This is now a uniquely T2 pack though from Turbo. He's going to keep skirmishing, utilising the extra range of the Gatling guns and rockets off those mongoose. All of the combat more or less tied up in the centre. Western and eastern approaches very quiet. We've got a little bit of play going on down here from 1 or 2 rogue units, 1 solitary hoplite picking off individual T1 tanks. In come 2 more hoplites though. Could this be the start of a massing of forces over in the east for Kiza? I have to check back on that in just a second. Kiza still producing quite a few Medusas though, bulking out his forces with those. Still has some Mantis in there. Turbo, conversely, has gone straight for T2 across the board. Free marketers comprehensively modernising. Who would have thought? I told you it was going to be partisan. Heavily shielded T2 army in the background there for Turbo, now advancing towards this unprotected assortment of T1 and T2 spam from Kiza. I would have thought he would have pressed there. I think he's got the firepower and the shielding to do it, although he's having power troubles. Maybe that's why he's backed off. You can see the shields blinking on and off there. What is he upgrading back at base? So he's working on another T2 power plant, trying to get his power grid sorted, affecting everything in his economic production right now. Let's take a look at total mass accrued, and actually Tories way ahead by 7.5 mass, I reckon. 7.5k mass. 7.5 mass. Way ahead for 19 minutes into the game. Could have won Guile. But yeah, about 7.5k mass ahead over the course of the game. And that's quite a lot. When you think about it, we're up to 67 and 60k respectively. 7.5k, that is quite a significant difference. It's just what's allowed Turbo to modernize. What proportion of that is reclaim? 11k, 12k to 8.5k there. So a solid 60% of that advantage just off the reclaim alone. Engineers sitting up front. Naughty little TAC missile launcher up in the center. That's firing its first missile. Where is it headed? Over off to the southwest. What have we got down here? Excuse the dog in the background if you can hear him barking. Actually just took him to the vet because we put flea treatment on him, flea collar, just about everything that you can think of, and he won't stop scratching. And that's because, yeah, he doesn't have fleas. He's just nervous. Sucker. Nice little what was that? Was that a mass point? Doesn't look like the mass point. Where's the green thing? There it is. That was a T2 Mex that just got taken out. Sorry about my little dog interlude there. I'm sure you're not remotely interested. But the emergence of T3 is an interesting addition to this game there. Kiza leapfrogging the Tories in tech, going straight to T3. Do have T3 under manufacture back at base for Turbo, but nothing right up front. Got the first Percy being airlifted in now, and I like the inclusion of transports there, helping to get the units where they're needed. And that's interesting. So trebuchets now being spat out of Corbyn's people's production facilities for the workers. Everybody's on £40 an hour, but work has to stop 3 days a week and 4 days out of every month for strike action. So how many trebuchets have we got now? Because that's an interesting mix-up, and it's a sensible idea. These front lines, essentially, as we said a moment ago, haven't moved. So switching to some range, softening up these front lines with mobile artillery, not a bad idea. Courier airlifting engineers out to the southwest. I did think for a moment we were going to see some movement over in the west. It looked like there was a bit of a build-up going on over there, but it hasn't been given much in the way of resources. It seems to have petered out there. Now the first Percival's showing up to that shielded front line. Forward they go. One lone Percy standing out front. You want some? Come get me! Just totally balls out. Let's do this. On he goes. First few shells landing down on the shield gens, but he's picked up a trebuchet already, and there goes a second one before that can even fire a shot. Third one's now in danger, and Kiza's attention is most definitely elsewhere. He's lost all three of those trebuchets. That Percy is now going to try and retreat. Can he get to the coverage of the shield gem before he dies? Unlikely with all of that loyalist pressure coming at him that quickly. They will snag a loyalist kill and a Rhino, or a Wagner kill, like a Rhino kill for their trouble. A few others as well. Still shields blinking on and off. Turbo not getting a handle of his power production. Can't seem to get enough of these up and running to do it carefully and consistently. There we go, one more. That should do the trick. Don't want to suffer those power outages at inopportune moments like when T3 Mobile is raining down upon your stacked up shielded troops. And now we have another 3 trebuchets already in this pile of units for Kiza. Scout shot down, 25 minutes gone, and literally no movement and no pressure anywhere else except for the occasional reclaim operation from civilian engineers trundling up and down in the west. Nothing happening over in the east. Everything is about this central channel. I'm surprised we haven't had more engineers trying to set up bases and stuff down here. We are starting to see more shielded base infrastructure emerge for Turbo. He's only killed one thing, which was that Mex earlier, that one missile he fired out of that tactical missile launcher. Actually, that might not be the one. He might have lost that missile launcher because that's not showing any kills. It's showing one loaded missile. So it was probably stationed there and got taken out. Back to generated Eco and Kiza. It's about 6 mass behind 154 to 148. Still too close to call. Skyhook airlifting more trebuchets to the front line. That now makes 4 of them. And are we going to see Clink hammers going up under this newly constructed shield coverage over here? No. For the moment, just a triad launching a bit of point defense their way. Shields depleted as the next round rolls in. 2 power shields gone there, and the base shields gens taken out because a shell gets through right when it blinked off, because Turbo, still having power troubles, just gets back into the positive there. But look at that! Major blow for the Tories. Ground given up. Very inopportune moment for the shields to collapse. And now they are going to try and pressure the west, at least for a bit of raiding opportunity, while there appears to be a breakthrough for the socialists in the center. Ground firing. They're still shooting at. It's a whole lot of nothing right there. Strikers moving in on that western position. Engineers throw up a T1 PD. That takes care of some business right there. That is not a successful incursion in the slightest. Virtually everything, with the exception of 2 mass storage and a Mex, comprehensively defended right there, and a Skyhook bringing in something to reinforce. So that's a brick, so there'll be no more problems from T1 and T2 spam leaking in through that hole in the fence. And now it's Turbo's turn to throw out some mobile artillery. 2 demolishers sitting just behind that northerly hillock. That is a scary pile of aggrieved workers. Look at that, out in force. Desperately unhappy about perceived rising levels of inequality. demonstrators dispersed with water cannon. Petrol bombs fired in reverse. Petrol bomb being fired in reverse probably sounds like a bit of a calamitous exercise. Not the best way to describe that, the best metaphor. Clink Hammer's under construction back here now, so this will be the fallback point. This will be the point where Turbo will be hoping to extend out from. Got his comm in there. Completes the static artillery and going for 2 new shield gens. See the damage that's doing to the T1 and T2 spam. Bricks and Loyalists, of course, much more able to weather the storm, but he won't want the trebuchets to get exposed to one of those shells, and they are very heavily clumped up. Some mobile missile launcher fire coming in from the east. Demolisher shell lands right on top of that westerly trebuchet. And is that the brick that dropped off over there? I think it is. I think it advanced up through the center and is now sitting in the lake. That could cause some problems. Actually, there's another one up there as well. So just the odd T3 unit getting into the back of Turbo's territory, picking off vulnerable mexes. These ones only at T1 though, so he hasn't bothered investing in that. Maybe because he wasn't sure about being able to secure them. Maybe because he forgot. One is very tactically clever and one is a pure accident of attention. Both with the same results. Let that be a lesson to you. 50% of the time, the actions of an idle man seem miraculously intelligent. It's the very words I live my life by. It's how I've got by in life. Now, 2 operational Clink Hammers with assorted T1 P-Gens backing them up for rate of fire increases and power efficiency. And still, we have 0 movement. It's actually, if you've been following the UK election, this is exactly how it has gone, really. The gap hasn't really changed that much in polling. Little bits here and there, but essentially the 2 parties have been stealing vote share off the minor parties, which is exactly what happened to a lesser extent, but still happened in the 2017 election. Both parties posting close to record vote shares. Numbers we haven't seen in elections for quite some time. Shield 12-13% done on the upgrade there for Turbo, who is what, 9 mass points ahead, so Keys are slowly closing the gap. He's actually about to pick up one of the mexes deep into Turbo's territory over in the northwest, and that brick that took it out is now right around the back of Turbo's base. And does Turbo have eyes on that? No, he doesn't. So he is blissfully unaware of that tanky high damage Tech 3 unit that's about to stroll in his back door. And if he manages to take out that T3 power plant, which he's perfectly capable of doing, that could have some major collateral damage. That shield, that's energy storage, sorry, will drop out. In comes a broadsword though, so we're up to T3 gunship production for Turbo. But it's not going to save that T3 reactor. Where's Turbo at for power? Well, he's going to need that T3 reactor. That is bad times. And there it goes. Look at his energy, stored energy plummet. He is now suffering energy problems once again. That is a sneaky little run by from Kiza. And Turbo should have had a handle on that, being as he's well aware he's lost Mexes over in the west, or he should be well aware. A new TAC missile launcher up over here. Engineers hurriedly trying to assist that in its missile production, but nothing's going to get done in any great way, shape or form until that new reactor is completed. Fusion reactor being spanned up back in its old place. Message to newbies: if you're new to the game, always makes sense if you're going to rebuild something, rebuild it on the wreckage of the old one. That's a 50% bonus, I think, still to eco cost and to building time. Surprised he didn't just advance forward, take out the brick and then retreat. But look at that, look what's waiting over in the west. I completely missed the notify on that as well. Yabbering away about something else unimportant, I'm sure. A Monkey Lord lurking in the valley to the west for Kiza. What I do like to see is the regularity of general scouting, at least down the center, from Turbo. He wants that to pop up. Now, was he paying attention? Because that's pretty unmistakable to these guys at 2100 apiece on global ranking what that is. You're like, yeah, okay, that's a Monkey Lord, if he saw it. And he must have seen it now with those scout planes flying overhead, and that is a downright emergency, which is why you can see he's pulling all of his forces out of the middle back to protect the main base. And surely Kiza's going to respond, if not immediately, but in the near future, by moving up the center. And there he goes, shadowing his opponent and potentially looking to gain some ground. If he can snag this plateau and push Turbo off this base and separate these two arms of his territory, then Kiza is on to a winner. And I will be a very sad puppy. Difficult decision to be made now. Look, he has to split his forces. He can't allow. He knows he can't allow this middle section here to fall. But that is potentially cataclysmic. Now, in comes the broadswords. That's the natural defense against the Monkey Lord. It won't last long against those gunships. How are we doing on ASF protection, though, for those broadswords? Well, he comes in, he engages the Monkey Lord. The Monkey Lord withdraws to the lake. In comes the fighters, who are now going to duke it out for aerial superiority over this portion of the map. Seem to have broadly similar amounts of ASFs, maybe one or two more for Turbo. But Kiza has the advantage in interceptor numbers. Although, of course, that is massively antiquated tech now. Demolishers softening up these units that have pushed right out through the west in the wake of that Monkey Lord. And God, although I don't want Kiza to win, and I'm very open about that fact, unobjective as that is, feels like a missed opportunity somehow. Would it have been better to sacrifice the Monkey Lord and try and cause as much damage to the power grid and production facilities as possible? I don't know. He wouldn't have gotten that far. If he'd have sent all of his Air Force, though, in, sacrificed them, tried to take out as many of them, the gunships, as possible, the Monkey Lord could have torn this up, I reckon, if he'd have moved quickly before those Percivals had got into position. Maybe I'm talking garbage. You guys will be able to watch this back. I'm operating off what I bothered to take in at the time, and with now no point of reference. But no, he is withdrawing that Monkey Lord to save it for another day. It's probably a wise decision. Mass and reclaim plays such an important role in this game, never to be underestimated, and players are always wary of giving free mass to their opponents. An attempt at some Janus pressure right down the middle. he actually going for there? I have no idea. Trying to get in somewhere sensitive in the main base, I think, but the ASFs for Kiza keeping that base completely safe with good solid awareness and air coverage. T3 upgrade now on the way for Turbo's comm. He's got both currently the T2 engineering suite, of course, and the personal shield on board that already. So that is going to be a tanky looking comm right there. A little bit like Boris Johnson in a way. He's put on a bit of weight lately in the last few years. That is quintessentially Bojo. Great big giant. He just needs to make a few ill-advised comments, some political gaffes, and then that is quite literally a personification right there. Jeremy Corbyn, I can't see any direct resemblance between him and the Cybrid Commander. That would be quite the Halloween costume. I suppose he's got quite a spiky personality though, isn't it, when he's being questioned about things. So I suppose in that sense, metaphorically, he is a spiky socialist. Quite joyless, sitting in his allotment, eating his lentil soup. Give me the floundering, womanizing Bojo any day of the week. I do hope my kids never watch this. Not much chance of that. It does worry me, actually, about the longevity of this game. I do hope it still is appealing to the younger generations. I know I've mentioned in previous casts that I haven't selected that this is viewing that I would say was particularly child friendly, but are there any younger watchers here? Give us a shout in the comment section below if you're at least early 20s or late teens. I'd be fascinated to know if this game is still pulling in anybody from the younger generation, or if they're all too busy playing Fortnite, certainly when my kids are out. Now that was weird, because that looked like a loyalist, and that was a loyalist in Turbo's colours. So has he captured an engineer somewhere? Does he have Cybrin tech, or did he manage to capture a loyalist that wasn't paying attention? I somehow can't quite imagine that. I don't know how he would manage to do that. And the Monkey Lord was trying to make another approach over here. In come the broadswords. They lay down some fire, but they're going to have to withdraw in the face of the impending ASF onslaught. They have their stealth turned on. And now the posturing once again. That's good solid awareness thanks to these T1 scouts. The Monkey Lord, of course, with its own personal stealth field, completely invisible to general radar. You've got to keep eyes on it or have omni coverage. And that is going to sit happily in the lake. Not quite covered, just the top of that microwave laser popping out there. "19 kills for that TAC missile launcher." And it's still 307 now to 303. 4 mass per tick. So again, Labour closing the gap just a little bit. They've certainly claimed a lot of territory with this pressure up the western edge. If you look at total map control, Tories now sitting on, I suppose, could be argued about 33% of it. About a third of the map now. Maybe a little bit more. Another TAC missile launcher over here. That's got 6 kills. So Turbo sticking with the standoff tactics. 41 minutes gone and very little has happened. You've had lots of skirmishes up and down the middle. You've had that action that's kicked off a couple of times over in the west, but nothing's come of it. In fact, the most exciting bit of play that's come out of all this has been that brick that wandered around the back of Turbo's base to get a T3 reactor. Otherwise, everything that's been attempted has been countered pretty effectively. Oh, a bit of friendly fire there from the Demolishers. Takes out his own TAC missile launcher. No more kills for that bad boy. Crab under construction. Quarter done there. That's scary looking stuff. And he's closed the gap to 2 mass now, Keyser. And he overtakes 342 to 340, or is that reclaim related? Both suddenly jumped up into the 340s there, so you never quite know. Where are we at on total mass? Total mass 381 to 383 to 355 in favor of Turbo. That's pretty significant, nearly 30k advantage. Reclaim, where are we at? 30k versus 18k. So Turbo really has been doing better on the reclaim side of things. Deceiver in around the back, absorbing huge amounts of broadsword fire before finally getting taken down. Looked like they were comprehensively hitting it, but obviously they couldn't have been. Deceivers just aren't that tanky. New TAC missile launcher constructed in more or less the same place as the last one, going after basic units in the ponds down there. Now, where are the next moves happening and what are they going after? So, Fat Boy under construction at the main base there for the Tories. T3 upgrade still going along there as he's trying to keep his economy improving. 364 to 319. So Tories pulling ahead in eco once again, and Turbo just very happy to out-tech his opponents, build up, out-turtle, and I can only presume at this stage go for some stand-up off tactics late game. Very arguably nearly there at 3/4 of an hour into this one. 44 minutes gone. Keyser completes that megalith. Now that could really open things up. That's the first major experimental we see deployed to the field. The Monkey Lords are dangerous. They pack a lot of punch, but they're very, very light in terms of tank. Megabot more than twice the hit points of a Monkey Lord. About 2.5 times the amount. Neither player wanting to make a move. Everybody happy to sit back, tech up, eco, turtle. Does it count as turtling if your opponent is not attacking? I'd argue probably not. The flanks have been very quick. See, there's another one. No, we're not talking about it. It wasn't another one. It just moves very like it's a freaking Titan. Guile on point with his SOPCOM casting as always. Demolisher taken out. You know what threw me? The fact that Turbo is playing in red and the speed at which he was moving. Definitely a Titan. And this is squeaky bum time now for Turbo. The first real threat up front that he's seen for a while. Broadswords brought in to put down some fire, and then he thinks, no, maybe not. This is my Zoidberg impression. Whoop, 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 whoop. Away he goes, and onwards Crab advances. There's no way in hell that shield gen's going to be allowed to remain. Assuming they sack the rangefinder and get somebody who knows how to process things. See, this is the socialist brain drain problem. We've got the chap who sweeps up outside McDonald's, operating the gun turrets. No skilled labour left in the workforce. So not looking forward to the comments that are going to be found on the bottom of this one. He's actually ceased production on that TAC missile launcher, and I'm presuming he's going after that megalith with that missile, but the megalith on the move. It's not going to get caught out by those. Another one coming in from that one up in the northwest. Megalith way away from that position by the time those missiles strike their target. Another megalith under construction at the main base. Still no committal, no mass push. No one wants to be the first one to lose. I think the thing that's really scaring him is the solid shielded Percy armies up here. The fact that they're so well protected. Just doesn't want to force it. You get the impression one wrong engagement and that's it, it's over. But Tory's way ahead on eco now, 435 to 362. Surely that's unsustainable. And we've now got the Zeph amp on board Turbo's comm as well, so if they do ever get to his comm with land forces, that's a pretty chunky looking beast right there. And speaking of chunky, that is a chunky looking group of broadswords. It's a lot of aerial air-to-ground damage. He'll be banking on winning air battles and using those to deal with any experimentals that may come his way. So Quantum Gateway up and running for Turbo. Do we have one in place for Kiza and the Corbin crew? Doesn't look like it. Wondering if that's going to help Turbo's cause late game. We said in the last cast, actually, we were discussing, or I were, it's a very much a monosyllabic conversation, but are the support commanders overpowered? In come the broadswords. They lay down some fire on that megalith over in the east. That provokes a massive air battle as the broadswords try and bug out. Who is going to win this one, I wonder? And what will that change on the battlefield at large? Well, Labour bug out. That was a missed opportunity there. Well, maybe not, actually. We've got a lot of bouncers in the pile down here. Turbo not wanting to overexpose his ASFs and get caught up, throwing away any advantage that he might gain right by that. That allows him just simply to bring the broadswords back in and start laying the smackdown on this megalith. That will provoke another response from Corbin's air crew. In they come, the broadswords back on out. The inevitable response, and so the cat and mouse game continues, and finally those bouncers get in to protect that megalith, who has lost an awful lot of HP. But now Tories need to get their air power away from that plateau, because those bouncers are having a veritable field day, or at least they were before they started hitting the cliff edge. That fat boy we saw under construction earlier has moved forward, and he's being flanked by those Percivals. So finally, after what feels like a good 20-25 minutes of relative quiet on the battlefield. We're getting some movement now. Turbo feeling like he can press, and goodness gracious me, is that accurate? 456 to 461. Suddenly very little in it in current output. Let's do a quick T3 assault bot count. 96 Percivals on the field for Turbo. That's a sickening amount. Let's compare it to the number of bricks that Keyser's got. 92, so there's not a lot in it. Both comparatively similar amounts of assault bots. I thought there might be a lot more on Turbo's side of things because of that massive lead he's built up in total mass accrued. 613 to 548. That's absolutely huge, but apparently not. Both players with one major experimental. Keys has put out the Monkey Lord, which of course is cheaper, but he's had that out for a while. So let's have a look at air power. So 91 ASFs there for Turbo and 79 for Keyser. Turbo, of course, has been spending money on broadswords. They are expensive, but it certainly doesn't account for what we're seeing there. And that fat boy has rolled right forward with the rest of that death ball and has forced Keyser to back the hell up. Keyser has got a Gunther battery up and running over here, but that is just getting torn a new one by that fat boy artillery fire. But look at those two crabs coming in from the southeast. They're laying into that shield. What's that death ball of Percival's going to do? They're not going to be able to protect that fat boy if they don't roll forwards. And it looks like they're not. The fat boy got caught out and just destroyed. Turbo says brutal. And this is very, very bad for the Tories indeed. As all that ground they just gained is just going to get torn apart. Broadswords come in to put some damage on the crabs once again, but they get hit pretty badly by the aerial response from Keyser before those ASFs inevitably back away. But these two crabs just tearing into these Percivals. Have they closed too much distance now, though? That's the question. The Percivals sticking to stay and fight. The first crab is going to go down. There it goes. There's still one remaining. However, the bricks are on the warpath, rolling up through the center. The bricks that were guarding the main base back here from any potential southwesterly incursion and that Monkey Lord are being funneled in towards the center. So now the Monkey Lord is in the move, on the move once again. We might see a potential push towards the main base once again from him. It all is going to hinge on how this conflict right in the center goes. So many Percivals that were hanging back, defending the main base. Socialists on the absolute warpath. It's not looking good for free markets right now. Who's winning at this point is anybody's guess. I haven't got visibility on the health meters. I think it might be the death ball of the Percivals. Crab is in backup mode. Has he taken much fire? Oh, not really. He's on about 50% health, but the amount of bricks has diminished severely. And we're in range of these clink hammers now as well, which have opened up on the crab. Crab's sitting at about 65,000 hit points of the base. 110. Once again, the Percies are brought in. We're going to be left basically with clink hammers versus the megalith as the assault bots destroy each other. Very little left of either force. The damage coming off that crab, it's just horrendous. One of the best experimentals in the game, there's no doubt. Another group of Percys coming in, but completely failed to mention or to check back in on the Monkey Lord, of course, which did stroll right in the open door, took out 2 reactors and an air facility at the very least, and God knows what else. They looked like wrecked Percys that were trying to defend. They did something right. They kept the bulk of it out. A new Fat Boy has materialized, which will help contend with this new section of pressure coming in from the southwest. What's going on back at the middle? Well, that Megalith is down to around 12,000 HP, but the shielding has collapsed around those Clink hammers, and there's still a few operational bricks. The Percivals have been completely annihilated. This has gone so badly for the Tories, thanks to that dual Megalith combination and picking off the Fat Boy early. Tories overextended and suddenly find themselves in a tight spot, but they managed to keep Corbyn's powerful, fast-moving Monkey Lord out of the main base. That's absolutely crucial for them staying in this, and they are still ahead on generated eco, 504 to 452. So the mass lead increasing all the time. So despite that looking like major work was done, he's got plentiful power reserves spread out on the map. He's got T3 reactors dotted around here, around that quantum gateway, which is still pumping out support commanders and increasing that mass lead all the time. And that's the mass field that Kiza was just talking about. Whoever controls that is going to have an absolute field day. I'm surprised there's not engineers being airlifted in now as we speak. If they were brought in, potential problems arise from the presence of that Fat Boy, and now those Ravagers that have been thrown together by those newly constructed or newly gated in support commanders. And this is the problem. To and fro now. That death ball of Cybran power we saw on the ground diminished. We do have a second crab out once again, though. And actually a third. Massive increase in public spending. Paying dividends, at least in the short term, as it always does. If only government finances weren't finite and acted like the mass extractors. Wouldn't that be wonderful? And that Fat Boy opening up on its compadre's old wreck, trying to kill off any engineers that might be going after it. Another couple of engineers go in, another volley raining down, and the wreck bites the dust as a result. Support commanders come forward. They want to lay down some shield coverage. That will last for a moment or two before Crab breaks through, and that's going to be a couple of dead support commanders. So much damage. I mean, I know I'm not a big fan of Cybrans. Well, you guys know that better than anyone, but it's one of my all-time favorite units, the Megalith. It's such a beast. Great range, great damage, great tank, great utility, which doesn't get used enough. These guys could all be sitting back here, pumping out more bricks. As we approach 1 hour, and really very little's been decided. Almost feels like the general election campaign hasn't gone on as long as this one. Fat Boy number 2 wants to be careful, doesn't want to fall foul of the same fate as his brother just did a moment ago. Doesn't get moving, he will do. Oh, well, the strap bombs will get the job done. Equipped with stealth as well. Any response will be delayed, and that's the end of that experimental. Strap bombers do all get shot down, so a reasonably heavy price paid for that kill, but Kiza will be banking on the territory being gained, will pay for itself, and if he can get control of this mass field, well, That will be a massive, massive boost. Well, so would a solid nuke right now out from Kiza. And he's going for some nuclear point defense. And if that lands quickly, which it should do, it's not a huge amount of distance away from the silo. That could be devastating. Oh my god, nearly takes out the third one as well. That's down to 14, nearly 15k HP. Almost all of the bricks go up in that. Brutal, says Turbo. Yes, it is. That was a thing of beauty right there. And we are none the wiser about how this game is going to proceed. That has wiped out a decent amount of mass, but it's created a bunch more in the form of those megalith wrecks. And there's lots of engineers down here. There's support commanders nearby, further back. These guys already hoovering up the mass. Look at this now. Turbo 986, 989 versus 794. What's he doing with all that mass? Well, he's pumping out fat boys. And he has a Novax. And that satellite's already on its way due south to a completely unshielded base down here for Labour. And the first thing to go is the strategic missile defense. So he's wide open to a potential nuke right now. Unless he's got another one located anywhere else. Has he got any over here? No, well, just have to use our eyes the old-fashioned way. I think that base is wide open now. And look at all the engineers working on that megalith that are going to die in the volatile explosion from that ion reactor that should go up with the next volley from that satellite. Can't believe what a feature it's become of the UEF game since that was buffed. Quick reclaim. Nicely done. Prevents the explosion from going up. Kiza paying attention. Now, how much power has he got to spare? That's the question. 6,100, so he can afford to lose a couple, but doesn't want to lose more than that, but there's nothing he can do about it right now. And there's the reclaim, so that doesn't go up. Those engineers are still safe. Cheeky little run by up at the top, though. Look at what's going on up here. That's a lot of bricks potentially strolling in the front door, and we are going to go to, not to that, we are going to go to split screen, if I finally hit the right key, and we want to keep an eye on these two different areas. I don't want to miss anything important again. And another fat boy getting caught out by those megaliths. That's unreal. The advance stalling for a moment before continuing. Percival's are lying in wait. Strap bombers returning from whatever sortie they were on. How's that satellite going? Still working on the P-gens back here. Kiza, little or no response to it, really. How much damage can he inflict? That's the question. There is another fat boy online over here. Meanwhile, back at the main base, Percivals are running a little bit thin. Engineers hurriedly throwing down point defense in the hope of keeping this brick wall out of their base. We have the odd Ravager in there. Best bet would be to wheel north and try and take out some of those ion reactors. Right in the middle, megaliths just forcing their way through. Where is the nuke launcher? How close is it to the next one? Well, it's a ways off. It's only half done, and it's not currently building by itself. It's got nothing else sorting it. All of the engineers, the Kennel engineer drones, are working on the next fat boy for the time being. Still bricks leaking into the main base, but I don't think they're going to kill off anything too sensitive. Much of the threat is actually from friendly fire from that fat boy. But the middle has been blown wide open. The two crabs are still alive, but only just. The back one on 6,000 hit points, the front one on 19,000, both comfortably in the red. Turbo just up here with his comm, but in the water. And the defense satellite has been brought out, or is that the second one? He's got two of them now, so one of them at the main base still working, I imagine, on anything he can get his hands on, working on the ion reactors. Look at that. What has happened to Keyser's power? Somehow he's still operational. He must be killing production orders left, right, and center, though. One of the Novaks about to go down. That's in range. Can they get the second one as well? That would be absolutely crucial, and we'll go on once again to extend this game. We've got to go back to single screen. Can't deal with all of that carnage raining down without any proper sound effects. They never factor in on the right window. They only play sound from the left. Always annoyed me. Ow, 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 ow. That has been a brilliant bit of pressure from Keyser. Look at the trail of destruction, and he's still wreaking havoc. If you can get the bricks in there and kill off that other satellite system. Still causing havoc back here, but all of the reactors are dead. Oh my god, kill the Novaks. Kill it already, kill it with fire. Where are you going? Put all of your fire on the defense satellite system. And there it goes. So where are we at? Actually, we still have vulnerable base sections up here. Nothing nearby that looks like it's going to miraculously suddenly kill off those megaliths. So we've lost two Novak satellites, the Quantum Gateway, a buttload of fusion reactors, the nuke. That has really muted Turbo, but look at Keyser. Completely power locked. He's got no power. He's putting out 92 mass per tick. So Turbo, despite taking a massive hit to his eco, is still on 394 versus Keyser's 93. And what's his power like? He's doing fine because he spread out his power grid. He's got plenty of power generators back here. He overcompensated. Keyser not happy about his game. Well, I think he's played pretty darn well, but couldn't manage to kill off Turbo until it got into the late game. He allowed Turbo to build those standoff tactics, and it's completely crippled his economy. He is the literal embodiment of the Venezuelan economy that Corbyn praised 2 years before it exploded, or imploded, probably a better term for it. That is where we are at right now. Fat Boy under construction, and where are we? So we're an hour and 6 minutes, and yes, it looks like Turbo's in a reasonably good position. Well, actually, maybe it doesn't. Maybe I spoke too soon. Keyser gets his power grid temporarily under control, and it's putting out 371. Well, that's actually reclaim related, so he is scooping huge quantities of mass, and he's actually wasting a lot of it. He's not building it, and he has still epic power problems. He has got to get reactors up and running, and quickly. That's what everything is geared to in his main base right now. What are Turbo's plans? Or Turbo working on a new Quantum Gateway up at the back, simultaneously working on two Fat Boys. Little plateau at the back. That would have been a great place to build the Novaks, right up here. But I guess you build them where you can quickly throw them down at the time where your build capacity is, and now engineers being airlifted out to rebuild, and it just feels like we're still nowhere near to working out how this game is going to end. Ion reactors rapidly being rebuilt at the main base of Keyser. He's actually in positive power now for the first time. Might dip into negative power once again once he starts the next ion reactor, but that will definitely have him covered. And now we've got one fully healthy megalith and two admittedly badly damaged megaliths, but they're looking a lot better than they were just a moment ago when they were deep into the red. That Cybran regen flying back onto the megalith. Support commanders being airlifted in to scoop some of the mass before the field is lost. T1 engineers scooping what they can in the middle. Look at the total mass differential over the game. 1.34 million to 994,000. I wonder if there are any Liberal Democrat supporters watching who are upset that this is a 1v1 game instead of a three-man free-for-all. They bought into Jo Swinson's thing that she could be Prime Minister. I don't think anybody, even members of her party, for any moment actually believed that that was a possibility. It is a fundamental nature of our politics that until something catastrophic happens to one of the two parties, it's essentially always going to be a Prime Minister from one or the other. And a new Novax is nearly complete. And that is interesting, because getting his base shielded is a monumental undertaking. He started it. Doesn't want to end up in the same situation again, but that's a lot of coverage that he needs to supply. And Turbo can just switch to mexes instead if he can't get to the ion reactors. Another megalith, but he's up to 4. Is that another megalith or some monkey lord somewhere? I have to actually see where he's building it. He's got 2 operational, so another megalith. 4 operational megaliths, 2 more on the way. We're just going to get a critical mass of crabs. That was one of the biggest mass fields I think I've ever seen in any game I've casted since 2011. I've been doing this, which is pretty insane actually when I think about it like that. 2011? Either 2011 or 2012. It might have been 2012 I started actually. Still, it's 7 years. See, when was it? 2000. So it's actually, I've been casting way longer through FAF than GPG was actually supporting the game. What was it, 2007? FAF, and they pulled it in 2011, 2012 when I started, something like that. Just crazy. Fat Boys shooing away some of the bricks. There's TAC missiles. Yes, they are. Zapper down. So, cheeky little T2 engineer building some TAC missile launchers, taking out the TMD, and now presumably going to work on some of the mexes. And in comes that next satellite. Now, what's he going to target? Is the question. It's going to provoke a response, surely, from Kiza. Can't sit back and just take another one. Ah, it's going to be the most frustrating thing in the world. You just got your power grid back up and running. Look at that. Healthy, everything in the green and yellow. And he's about to lose his power once again. It's astonishing, though, how well Kiza has done and what he's managed to do with so much less. He's produced about, 2/3 of the amount of resources that Turbo has. How much has been wasted through hoovering up Reclaim and whatnot, I couldn't tell you, but I suppose it's literally like the difference between the USSR and America. How long Russia and the USSR managed to cling on and trying to compete before eventually crumbling. Not that I'm saying that's where this is going to go, but it's not looking good right now with that satellite. Fat Boy continues to advance over in the west for Turbo. That is a lot of damage, though. That's a lot of crabs. Where are we on ASF numbers? Just working out what could possibly happen in an exchange. 94 there for Kiza. Turbo 160, so massive air dominance. And if he can win a battle, he's got 17 broadswords at his disposal as well. So don't be surprised if he wants to use that. And no reclaim order managed there to prevent the volatile explosion. Lots of dead engineers in that explosion. What's going on with his power grid? Well, he is already in trouble. And now the inevitable. I'm going to go to split screen. Keep the central screen, if I get it right. Central avenue on the left with the sound. In come the broadswords. Now, where are the ASFs? He wants to go in, but knows it's going to cost him. He doesn't have a choice. He's going in after the gunships. Kiza takes out a bunch of them, but he's going to lose his entire air force. And what's worse, I think the Tory's going to have a bunch of gunships to spare. And there's the GG. Kiza knows he's done. And I thought that was it for a minute if he'd already controlled Cade. Kiza was saying he should have gone RAS SCU like 40 minutes ago, or at least he thought about it, he says. Air power has gone from the Corbinites, leaving the gunships free rein to tackle everything else. We've got 2 satellites out now, one focused on the base, the other going after other mexes about the place. 1 hour, 15 minutes. Really, it doesn't get much more epic than that short. A few game enders. A very static game, though. I hope it was still entertaining for you all. And there's the Control K. Corbin going nuclear in a puddle. Very fitting. So there it is. My prediction is, if not a Tory majority, although it could be, well, it's arguable to say because it was actually finished on the dot, 1 hour 15. If not a Tory majority, then Tory's largest party, and somehow maybe with the help of DUP again, although he'd have to change his Brexit strategy if that's the case to get help from them again. Maybe they wouldn't support him again, I don't know, but excuse me. Somehow, if this is right, Bojo gets back into number 10, and I think on that basis, if this is going to be right, then it has to be a slim, very slim Tory majority, because I just don't see the DUP supporting him again, not with his current deal that he wants to push through, trying to get that through with DUP support. They're just not going to do it. They weren't happy with the deal, so that's what I'm saying. I'm saying very slim Tory majority. If that's the case, commiserations, Corbynites and socialists, and congratulations if there are any other conservatives of this age group watching this sort of thing. But who knows? I'm overdue to get it wrong, and I worry every day that I look at the polls that we could end up with a Corbyn government. But we'll see. What will be, will be. I hope you enjoyed it, guys. There's always more to come from me in the future. I've had a few extra donations recently from Patreon. Thank you so much to everybody who's donated. It really does mean the world to me. If you do want to support this channel and you don't want to do Patreon, guys, there's always PayPal. Any donations very gratefully received. But until next time, stay well and stay safe. This is Guile, signing out.